Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale, talking a little control deck mastery. Funny story about today's video is actually I started a grand challenge just while I was waiting for my video that was supposed to be today's to render, and then I thought to myself, you know what, these first 4 matches of this grand challenge have all been against relatively popular meta strategies right now, and I just so happened to win them all, so why not bring you guys this episode today? So I switched up the videos. I'll bring you the tournament recap probably in the next Clash Royale episode, but I'm kind of feeling this and I have it fresh in my mind. So what I want to do today is talk about control decks and kind of walk you through these matches. Then I'll play a live match or two at the end. Basically want to go ahead and share some tips and also share what I could have done better, because it's always a very valuable experience, in my opinion at least, watching your replays afterwards, win or loss here and there, not every single one obviously, but to kind of see what you could have done differently. So right here off the bat, I let my opponent make the first move and they start out with a Lava Hound, so I go super aggressively in the left lane. Now super aggressively, of course, with this control deck, I mean this is about as aggressive as I can get here with the guards and the miner and the ice spirit, but essentially I pretty much unloaded it in that left lane. Now I'm going to pause again here. I see the minion horde coming at me, but I don't want to use my poison too early. I want to wait and see what the attacker does, whether he adds something to the Lava Hound lane or adds something to the minion lane, so I opt to use my zap spell instead of the poison spell. Now I played the variation of this deck for a long time with the log where the zap was, and I gotta be honest, I'm kind of still undecided. The jury is still out with what I like better in this deck. The log comes in super handy at times because obviously you can take out the princess very easily, and it's also great for pushing back the these tanky beatdown decks with the giant and the prince oftentimes behind them, so it stops the prince charge. The log definitely comes in handy, and you can also use the log to push units such as these barbarians back into the poison spell while doing a little bit extra chip damage to the tower. But the zap spell is obviously very, very handy in its own right. Defensively speaking, it's just beautiful against decks like this when they're coming at me with the minion horde. We're actually going to show a replay in a second against a guy who had a cycle goblin barrel deck against me, a bait goblin barrel deck, and I was able to really keep up with his cycle using poison, ice spirit, and zap spell. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that next, I believe. But back to the match at hand, guys. So when playing a Lava Hound deck with any kind of control deck, my philosophy is, at least offensively, the first thing I'm looking to do is as soon as my opponent plays his Lava Hound, I really try to go super aggressively, oftentimes in the other lane. That's actually how I opened up this match, and I was really able to capitalize on my elixir advantage and at the same time make my opponent dedicate a little bit extra elixir to defending my opposite lane push, thereby making their Lava Hound push much more manageable for me to defend against in the other lane. So basically what I'm trying to do is make sure I keep up with my Inferno Tower. You can see a balloon coming at me here. He really hasn't touched any of my towers here, and whoa, check out this huge swarm coming at my Inferno Tower here, adding the minion horde and the princess to the mix there, and I was still able to defend pretty easily there. I used the poison on the balloon and Lava Hound, and then that was able to buy a little bit extra time for my Inferno Tower to take them both out, along with a little help from the Ice Spirit. So you can see pretty easy here again, getting a lot of value out of this poison to end the match. And I'll tell you what, guys, the Mega Minion is really absolutely OP in this game. I mean, okay, maybe not OP, but geez, he is so useful on defense. You're gonna see in this next replay too that the Mega Minion is I'm gonna lean on him really heavily to defend even against a Goblin Barrel, and he does a heck of a good job. And then of course he's hardy enough to stay alive and really act as like this central unit in my counter push as well, especially when I parlay him with the miner. So this next guy here was actually pretty good, and this is the match I was talking about. You can see he has in his hand right now Miner, Skeleton Army, Minion Horde. He has the Goblin Barrel up next, so look at the type of really onslaughts of these fast-moving proxy cards as well as the Minion Horde that he can throw at me. Obviously, it's kind of a bait deck. It's a super aggressive bait deck, and he has the Princess to boot along with Poison. It's an interesting deck that he's playing, and he plays it pretty well here. But basically, what's going to happen in this match, I should say, is I'm going to make a few really crappy decisions, and it's going to cost me early on, but luckily I was able to come back. So when I make these bad decisions, I want to stop for a second and talk about why I messed up. And the first one's coming up in just a second here. It's going to be a minion horde, and this one's just pretty obvious. I just mistimed my Ice Spirit placement. You'll see that in just a second here. I put my Mega Minion on the Miner, and check out the Miner activates my King Tower. Very risky Miner placement on my opponent's part, but on my part, really stupid Ice Spirit placement. So I was not able to even use my Ice Spirit to freeze those minions, and they almost take down my left tower. Only 700 and change HP left on that. So here, my poison spell, finally enough elixir to actually use it. I make the decision to go ahead and take out the rest of the skeleton army as well as the princess, and kind of chipping away a little bit at that left tower. Now, unfortunately, my opponent does have 2 elixir collectors on the board right now, so I'm going to go ahead and wait a little bit because I know he has the Goblin Barrel and all that really fast damage, so I don't want to drop my elixir collector unless I know I have enough defending elixir left in the tank. So there, you can see the Mega Minion does a heck of a good job defending against that Goblin Barrel. I mean, he threw a lot at me there, and I put down the elixir pump, and I still was able to defend, only really taking about 150 damage to that tower. So now I'm going to go super aggressive in the other lane, especially when I see him drop that elixir pump. I know I'm going to get a lot of damage done to that right tower, and at this point, well, I'm getting ready for it. Get ready for it, guys. I'm going to make my second big mistake of the match. I put the Ice Spirit on the Miner there. Why would I do that and put the Mega Minion on the Minion Horde? That was a terrible mistake, and it cost me the tower. Now, luckily, I was able to put my Miner down, and I put the poison. I pre-placed the poison there thinking he was going to immediately drop the skeleton army, and he did, but it was a little bit late, the skeleton army, not the poison. Poison was probably a little bit early. I didn't really need it. I think the Miner would have easily been able to take down that tower anyway. So a wasted poison there, and I could have used that poison right now to go ahead and do a lot of damage to both of those elixir collectors on the left. So this is really the second deck, and we haven't really discussed my overall strategy using a control deck against one of these bait decks. And essentially, I have a lot of weapons against these bait decks. I have the Ice Spirit. Even though I don't know how to use it, apparently, I do still have the Ice Spirit. I have the poison. I have the zap spell. So this is one of the reasons I love the zap spell. Of course, log would work against this deck too, especially considering it has the princess. But again, you can see how many times I've had to rely on zap to correct the mistakes that I have made in not using my my Ice Spirit or my poison properly. Oh, and alert, guys, here comes mistake number 3. Oh my god, I am awful. I put the pump right in the path of the Miner, forcing me to have to use the guards to defend my pump. You always have to defend your pumps, but I waste 2 of my 3 guards totally needlessly there. Didn't need to defend against a lone Miner at all, but I had to protect the pump. So at this point, we're well into overtime, and I'm just thanking my lucky stars that I'm still in this thing. I have to use guards defensively there, because I'm going to continue to chip away at that tower, using my Miner pretty much as possible here. I know that he has a Miner too, and he has a lot of quick damage resources. Here comes one of them right now in the Goblin Barrel, so I want to keep my zap up for the Goblin Barrel if at all possible. I'll use my poison against his tower and the skeleton army. That's totally okay, but I need to keep my zap in the cycle if at all possible to keep up with this Goblin Barrel. I really don't have any great answers for that other than the zap. So guys, look at all the stuff he is throwing at me right now. He has the Minion Horde, the Goblin Barrel, and the Miner all coming at my right tower. Luckily, I was able to defend. I had to use the guards too, anything possible to keep all those units. I mean, he burned about 10 elixir using that push, so I knew I really had to commit enough elixir to defend properly too, especially because we're in overtime, so it's do or die. So you can see, I've been doing a pretty good job, if I do say so myself, chipping away at his left tower, and eventually I get the job done, basically just using the Miner and the poison as much as possible offensively between, you know, that absolute rapid fire onslaught of troops he was throwing at me in the right lane. So now let's move on and watch me face a Hog Rider deck. Now this one is is an interesting deck. I haven't seen this exact deck, so I guess out of the 4 decks, plus whatever live matches we play after this, out of these, this is going to be the most unorthodox deck, and really probably not a quote-unquote meta deck. But it does look like a fun one, so if you're looking for an interesting Hog Rider deck that you haven't maybe seen before, go ahead and try this one. It's kind of like a cycle deck. It has the skeletons in there and the Ice Spirit, so it's like a Hog Rider Lightning cycle deck. Interesting synergy between the Hog Rider and the Lightning spell. You could take out the defensive unit, kind of like the Giant Lightning decks that we see so many of, kind of like that on steroids. So I'm just going to keep defending against the Hog Rider with the Inferno Tower. His deck is very fast, but so is mine, so I should be able to keep this Inferno Tower up to defend against every single one of his hog pushes. And that's really, this deck, actually this control deck, is really great against hog decks. I actually do really well. I don't lose a lot of matches against Hog Rider cycle decks or even like trifecta decks using this variation of the control deck, because I can kind of be as speedy or as slow as my opponent allows me. Going against a Lava Hound deck or a Giant deck, as we'll see next, I can kind of take my time, defend well, and then hit the opposite lane after they drop those really high cost elixir units. So here, did I mention that I was always ready with the Inferno Tower? Well, not this time, Ash. I probably should have just go ahead and sucked it up and put the Inferno Tower right in front of my tower, but either way, it was actually alright in the end because he only got 1 hit on. I used the Ice Spirit instead. And did I mention I love the Mega Minion, guys? Mega Minion with the Ice Spirit took down the Hog in like 2 seconds. It wasn't a big deal. So, so far into the match, I'm kind of worried at this point. I know he has the Lightning spell and the Hog Rider, so I know if he gets just 1 more hit off my tower using the Hog Rider, I'm pretty much toast because he'll use the Lightning spell in the last minute or so of the match, or the last few seconds of the match. So at this point, I'm going to pause real quickly here. I make the decision to protect my tower using the Inferno Tower, my second Inferno Tower used on that defense, and that's really going to cost me here because getting inside my opponent's mind right now, you've got to be thinking that he's thinking, I need to cycle back to the Hog Rider. I know he does not have the Inferno Tower up, and he was right. Immediately, he cycles to that Hog Rider. I was able again, though, to use the Ice Spirit with the Mega Minion, and he doesn't do any damage to my tower. That, my friends, is the power of the Mega Minion. It can really correct for my mistakes, and I absolutely love the card. And here, I was able to use the Poison spell with the Zap spell to go ahead and take down the tower with only 20 seconds or so left in the match. So at this point, I'm just going to structure up. I know he's going to throw everything he has at me here, so Ice Spirit in front of my tower, Inferno Tower down. We have the Elixir Collector right in front of my tower as well, and I'm able to lay down just enough distraction to keep all his units off my left tower and pick up the W. So let's go ahead and enter into a live match here for a change, and probably end the video after that. Now, I do want to bring you guys an entire 1 hour plus grand challenge video where we see how, well, I hope it's an hour plus. It might be 10 minutes if I lose 3 in a row, but hopefully it will be an hour plus video of an entire grand challenge. I know a lot of you guys commented and said that you wanted to see one of those, so I'm gonna make that happen. I am actually in the process of moving right now. First time homeowner, what up? Really excited about it, guys, but it's also incredibly stressful, and it's hard to sit down for an hour and record and play an entire challenge all together right now for me. But anyway, you can see I'm starting out here being semi-aggressive because he's not really doing anything, and I'm not going to sit here forever on full elixir. So I'm playing against a Sparky deck. I'm imagining a Giant is coming, and indeed, the Giant is already down. So this will be good because a Giant Sparky deck is actually, still kind of popular in the game, and this will fit in well with the meta theme that we have going on right now. And let me tell you guys, this deck is really, really good against these decks because I have guards, I have poison, I have a miner, I have a lot of weapons to distract, to get in there and distract that Sparky. So I'm going to use my miner right here and distract this wizard, and then I'm going to zap the... Ooh, that zap was a little bit risky there because it caused the wizard to re-target onto my Mega Minion there. My thought process behind doing it was to buy my miner a little bit extra time to allow the Mega Minion to do more damage to the tower. You guys know how incredibly devastating a Mega Minion can be on your opponent's towers. Even for 3 or 4 hits, that's talking like 600 damage off the tower. So right now, just kind of waiting him out here. I'm going to use this poison against that left elixir pump there in the tower, and the reason I'm doing that is because against his deck, I don't have a huge necessity for the poison spell in terms of his big pushes. You know, against other decks, against the last deck we went against, for example, I would not have burned my poison spell just on a tower and elixir pump, but against this deck, I mean, well, you can see I probably would have actually gotten value out of that poison, much more value here, so maybe that wasn't the right decision, but instead I'm going to drop the Ice Spirit on the Mega Minion, I'm going to drop the guards on the Sparky, and it still worked out just fine. He didn't get any damage onto my tower at all. He's playing a Bowler, Sparky, and Giant deck, and these decks can be very difficult to counter, but you can see here, I'm trying to stay aggressive with my Miner and my Mega Minion, and look at this, that was really nice there, got an additional hit off that tower with a Mega Minion, and things are going really, really well so far in this match here. I have 2 elixir pumps on the board. I'm going to use another poison against this right tower. That will take it down to maybe like 20 or 30 hit points, and then I'm just going to prepare for my defense. Also doing a decent amount of damage to that Sparky and adding a little bit more separation to the Mega Minion. So this is coming. He's coming at me pretty heavy here. Again, you know, I'm able to cycle back to the poison in time to probably prevent any damage to be done to my tower, which is exactly what we want, and it all works out again there. So even though he came at me with a lot in terms of firepower, I'm still able to cycle back using this deck fast enough to get that poison spell back again, and that's as easy as that, guys. That 3 minutes went by really, really fast, and guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you were able to pick up a tip or two using a control deck against popular decks in the meta right now. So guys, thanks again, and as always, take care, guys.